Law enforcement suicides are at an all-time high right now. One of the causes is poor leadership within the law enforcement profession. Nick, the host of the Roll Call Room podcast, has written a book, Police Mental Barricade, A Survivor's Guide to Poor Law Enforcement Leadership. This book is a raw and powerful look into suicide and how poor leadership decisions contribute to law enforcement suicides. Buy the book now at mentalhealthbarricade.com and stop the stigma.
The issues discussed on the Roll Call Room podcast do not reflect the opinions of any specific agency and are the views of the host or guest only. Any persons discussed may be fictional for comedic purposes. This podcast is rated explicit and listener discretion is advised.
If the lion is the king of the jungle, how can he be the king of the jungle? If he's not the biggest, the elephant is probably one of the biggest. He can't be the fastest because that's a cheetah. He can't be the smartest. So he's not the biggest, the fastest, or the smartest. So how does a lion become the king of the jungle? His mentality. That's the only difference of a lion and an elephant. When a lion walks up and sees an elephant, he thinks lunch. An elephant thinks run. And it's all mentality. Because when a male lion walks up, he may be outnumbered by a pack of hyenas, but I'm king of my jungle because of my mentality.
What happens when you're a gazelle and you're not being pushed, you're not being prodded, you're not given a reward, nobody's encouraging you? What happens when you're a gazelle and the lion's not chasing you anymore? You stop running. But what happens when you're a lion? When you're a lion, it does not make a difference. You realize that if your family is going to eat, that if that pack of lions is to survive, then you gotta go hunt. A part of being a beast just ain't eating a gazelle. A part of being a beast is the hunts. It's the hunt that they're excited about. They like to see the gazelles run. Then boom, they take off. Because real lions like to hunt. They love the process just as much as they love the prize. And some of y'all just want to score. You don't like the process. You're not in love with the process.
A true hunter's goal is not the prize. A true hunter's goal is to hunt. That's what they live for. They live to hunt. They don't just live to catch it. It's the whole process. When you are a true hunter, you don't go by time, you go by the gazelle. When you are a true hunter, you hunt until you get a gazelle, and you don't stop until you get one. And then you get another, and then you get another, and you get another.
If you're gonna do what you say you're gonna do, be what you say you're gonna be, you're gonna have to lion me out. You a gazelle, you're gonna come up short. You a gazelle, you're gonna have an average experience. You a student, I need you in lion mode. You an entrepreneur, I need you in lion mode. You trying to lose weight, lion mode. You can't do nothing significant in gazelle mode, nothing. Nothing impressive happens in gazelle mode. Nothing happens in run mode, give up mode, quit mode, scared mode, fearful mode, nothing happens. Everything happens in lion mode like I'm coming to get you.
You're listening to the podcast that changed the game and rocked an entire profession. Talking about shit in law enforcement that keeps poor leaders up at night. When others run scared and hide behind fake policies, the Roll Call Room podcast tells it like it is. No bullshit. No matter how hard these thieves try, we keep killing it. And now, here are your hosts, Nick and Mike.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Roll Call Room podcast. I'm super excited. My co-host for the day is drum roll. Where's my drum roll? Hold on. Jesus, I'm fucked up. Marc the Cop from The Shield Within, and also a joint podcast that we do. Marc, welcome to the Roll Call Room podcast. It's like you've been here before.
I have been here before, but I've never been here as a guest.
I know.
Kind of, sort of, but I am the only one. I'm not sharing a microphone now, and I am honored and privileged to be here on the Roll Call Room.
Well,
my dreams are coming true.
I got to tell you, if this is the top dream, I don't know, man. I don't know.
After the nightmare of the last 2 years of my career, this is really a dream.
And for those of you that don't know, I mean, a lot of our regular fans know who you are. Marc has been through the shit. Marc can talk about poor law enforcement leadership probably better than I can. Him and I are pretty much like twins, but he's the better looking twin. He's, or some would say, like,
yeah,
you know, like Nutrisystem puts up the before and after picture,
and I'm both.
I'm the before. I'm the guy that, like, you know, he's got the stained boxers on with no shirt on, you know, and he does the big muscle flex, you know. You're the guy after.
the fat, dumpy, bald guy with
like,
gray hair.
I can get an erection.
Well, see, you got me beat.
So today's episode, a couple of things, but our main focus for this episode is a Cars episode because Marc is a big cop car guy like I am. But your knowledge of cars goes way, way beyond my knowledge or experience with cars, because I thought I went back like old school cars, like NYPD mid 90s, maybe late 90s. But then when you and I were shooting messages back and forth and you were sending me pictures, I was like, oh shit, I remember this when I was a kid.
Well, I am old. I mean, I went to the academy in 1992.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say it. Like, I wasn't going to say it, but like,
that's all right. I'm comfortable with my senior citizenship.
Yeah. I mean, when a good question for you is like when you were in the police department and they brought everybody outside and they finally retired the chariots and went to automobiles, were you excited?
No, don't get rid of trigger. That's funny.
Where do we put our spears?
Right. Just like the ending there of Braveheart, right?
Braveheart or Gladiator?
Either one. Pick one. It's just as good.
You know, because I have OCD or ADHD or whatever they call it.
Me too.
Speaking of Gladiator, I just looked that movie up the other day. Do you know how old that movie is?
I'd be guessing.
Russell Crowe, like, looking really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, have you seen him now? He looks like he ate. He looks like he ate the other Russell Crowe.
Yeah, right. Fat Russell Crowe is kind of fun.
Yeah. So that was made in 2000, man. Does that make you feel old?
Yeah.
23 years old.
Good Lord.
And
what heck, how old is Russell Crowe now?
Ooh,
I don't have my Googler here.
Now
I'm afraid to Google on this machine because this one we're working on. Video. Yeah.
How old is Russell Crowe?
I guess I can use my phone.
IMDb. Hold on. Folks listening to
this. A little drum roll. We don't have any dead air.
I know what it is. Just for the folks on the call, I just tried to type Gladiator and I typed The Goonies,
which is another great movie.
Oh, this is going to make me do math.
Good old chunk.
1964. What is that?
He's 64. He's 2 years older than I am. So and I'm 56. So he's 58.
He's 58.
Mm-hmm.
Man, time has not been kind to that.
You said 62 or 64?
62.
Okay, so my math is bad because of my I was born 66, so he's 4 years older than I am. So
yeah,
he'd be 60.
Yeah, time's not kind to him, man. Like, I don't know what happened to him, but
well, you kind of let yourself go. You sit home, you're depressed, you eat. I can tell you all about it. I had 71 days to do it. when I was on administrative leave. But we won't get into that.
Me too, man.
This is a Cars episode. This is a fun episode.
This is a fun, and so I could stop getting emails from folks that are like, every episode is you bitching and moaning. Yeah. But yet you still tune in every
because it's so fun to listen to you bitch and moan. I can remember, and real quick, when I was still on patrol, of course, you're paranoid all the time now once you go through something like that. And so I would crank up the Roll Call Room podcast, and that's what was playing in my cruiser as I was patrolling all night. So they were listening to you and Mike just complain.
Like, yeah, fuck yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. And when you hit a point, you heard me going, yeah, man.
Here's the funny part was back then, like when I was still on the job,
mm-hmm.
I would listen to the episodes the day after I dropped them, and not because of egotistical reasons or anything like that. I was
mm-hmm.
listening for the audio, and I'm listening differently than the average listener. I'm listening for how to improve things, my dog barking,
quality podcasting there.
Yeah, quality pod. This is called home podcasting, folks. Yeah. Dogs barking, birds chirping, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be funny because I would listen to Mike and I on an episode, and even me in my cruiser, I would be like, fuck, that's so true.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I said it. Like, and I'm like,
I like that guy.
Aside from that really annoying voice, man, he really knows what the fuck he's talking about. And then it would be weird because then officers that I worked with would pull up they would buddy up the cars,
mm-hmm.
and they'd be like, hey, I just finished the last episode. And I'm like, uh-huh, what do you think? And
mm-hmm.
Yeah, you were talking about Captain so-and-so, weren't you?
I don't know what you're talking about. Drop and drive and pull away.
No, narc. I wasn't.
That's right. It was Blue Falcon. Is that what they call them?
Blue Falcon. Oh, yeah. I said that to somebody the other day where I work. I was like, we got a blue Falcon amongst us. And they were like, what the fuck is a blue? I was like, you're a civilian. But so let's go back, Cars episode. Let's go back.
Okay.
First car right out of the academy for you is what?
1991 Chevy Caprice.
Wow. Chevy Caprice.
The first year they flipped it over and made it look like a boat.
Oh, so it wasn't the box. It was the long. That's the long one, right?
Yeah, it's the 91. The squared off one's my favorite one. Was 87 to 90 was my favorite body style. But the 1991 was the first year when they did the redesign. It kind of looks like either some people call it an upside down bathtub, or it looks like an old Hudson, but it's all rounded off. 350 Chevy engine, fuel injected. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. It looks like an Impala.
Yeah, I mean the SS Impala was the same body.
I remember this car, Mark.
Yep, great cars. Horrible oversteer.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yes.
What about in the rain and snow?
Same thing. Well, they had a posi-track rear end, so they got around pretty good. I mean, you just had to be smart about what you were doing.
God, I remember these. The 1991 Chevy Caprice.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Classic. That wasn't the police model, right?
Correct. The Caprice Classic was a civilian line, and then what they did was they took that the Corvette LT1 motor and put in them, and they were just freaking rockets, man. They would fly. So back in those days, if you got the Crown Vic, which was the 91 Crown Vic, was a square body,
right,
with the biggest engine you could get, and it was a 351, but it was basically it had 8 more horsepower than the 5-liter 302, and it drove like it too, because they wouldn't hardly get out of their own smoke. But and most of the people in the state bid, they got whatever state bid was, meaning with the government, you're going to get the cheapest shit money buy, so they generally got the smaller engine. So when I'm going out with this, either if you got the Caprice, woohoo, winner, chicken dinner, or if you got assigned for the Crown Vic and then you're pissed off, you're like, Boston, I make you mad tonight? I mean, why you give me the Crown Vic?
Yeah.
So the comparison contrast, and if you don't know me, Mark the Cop loves his Crown Vics.
So yeah, and we're going to get into that as we get closer to that history. Back when you first started, you got out of the academy, it was 91 was a very different time. There was loyalty, there was brotherhood, or
yes,
cohesiveness. You can't say brother. Cohesiveness.
Yeah, I can remember what year we are, right?
Yeah.
Don't be a sexist, Nick.
I don't want to get canceled any more than I am. Yeah. And there was an understanding, because I remember when I got out of the academy in the late 90s, there was an understanding that when you got out of the academy, you were going to get everything you were going to get was going to be shit. Shitty uniform. Well, at least like the NYPD is such a big agency. So you were going to get reused stuff. You were going to get the worst car. You were going to get the worst locker in the locker room. Like there was an understanding back then. So was it the same way with cars when you got out of the academy was, hey, here's the shit box. Good luck.
Yeah. Well, when I got out of the academy, I was sponsored, but I started at a small village, and it was the village of Covington, Ohio, which is where I lived and I grew up. We had 2 cars. Woo! And the department was so small, we was 5 guys, and we had what we called then police auxiliary. We were the volunteer guys. And they had the new car, and then they had the old car, and the old car is the one the chief drove. So he would take it home. So on the weekends, this is funny. On the weekends, we'd have to drive down to the chief's house and pick up the old car so we could have 2 cars out. But again, everyone knew one another, and it was kind of very Mayberry-ish.
Yeah.
If you went to a call, and I didn't realize, especially when we started getting into our traumas.
Yeah.
Is that those early days when I would show up to basically a friend's house, and there's a death of a relative, or you go worse yet, you go in on a domestic, so you're virtually there with your friends on their worst day. Yeah. And I didn't really realize that until today when I started working through my thousands of traumas. Just those early days of law enforcement and being in that village where I grew up. And knowing those folks, and I guess in a way it's kind of good that, okay, I'm there for them, and sometimes, but when it's the other way around, when it's a domestic, you just have to really use a lot of professionalism and discretion. But we had a 91 Chevy Caprice and an 88 Ford Crown Vic.
Wow. 88 Ford. So folks that are listening, we're going to post these pictures of these cars too that we're talking about. So as we're going along, Marc has supplied pictures. I'm also going on Google, and I'm clipping some of these pictures as well, because as Marc is saying these things, I have to look at the body style for me to remember what's what, except for like the Crown Vic, which is such an American staple in law enforcement. The Dodge Charger, the Rango. Yeah. So I'm going to tell a really funny, cool Charger story when we get to the Charger era. Okay. I wrote it down on my Alzheimer's pad to remind me.
I thought that was the pad you were sitting on. Your incontinence pad.
Those are for really important things.
For when you're podcasting and you can't afford to go to the pisser, just let it fly.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know about podcasting, you have to make sacrifices. Right. If you're in a big conversation and you got to pee, you just got to let it go. So 1991 Caprice. What's the next model that comes out in your law enforcement career?
The redesigned, let's see, we went from 93 is when they come out with what they call the Aero Crown Vic, because they replace their cars every 2 years. So yeah, that first generation redesigned Crown Victoria. We had a Ford dealership in our little village.
Ooh, that's an interesting look.
Yeah, shout out to Carl Reineke Ford. Carl and I are friends still today. But the new Ford 1993 Ford Crown Victoria came out. And that's what they call the Aero body style, and that was the next one that came along.
Do they call that the P71?
Yes.
Okay, so that's
the P71 is the body style.
Okay, so I've got a picture here of that. Again, I'm going to post them when we post the episode. I actually have one from my old Chiefs, my old piece of shit Chiefs agents. Decked out in their California Highway Patrol
CHP.
Now, not CHP. I love that organization. They're great people. And I love the folks that used to work with my chief that email me, and they're like, he was a cocksucker when he was.
Glad to hear you.
Yeah, he was a cocksucker from sergeant all the way till Arnold Schwarzenegger made him the commissioner.
Really?
Yeah, Arnold made him he told me the story of how Arnold made him the commissioner. And I was fascinated by it because I love law enforcement history. I love it. And I just think that Arnold was in a crunch and really didn't really give a shit. So he was like, this guy's next in line. I'll just fucking tap him.
But makes it easy.
Got to meet Arnold Schwarzenegger. So, I mean, can't fault the guy for that.
So we have the Arnold Classic in Columbus, Ohio every year. Matter of fact, it was just last week at the time of this recording. So Arnold makes this trek to the Buckeye State once a year.
For what, weightlifting?
Yeah, there's a lot of people here, a lot of cops that go over and compete in the Arnold. There's a couple guys that I know that go over there and compete, men and women alike.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
His son is like really jacked, like he was when he was younger. Like,
oh, good for him.
Yeah, Arnold's body's failing him. I think it's all the steroids.
Well, he's in his 70s, isn't he? Late 70s?
Yeah, he is actually, yeah. I still see him as fucking Terminator. If he makes another one of those, I'll watch it. I don't give a shit.
Best thing I ever did was change the voice on my Waze app to the Terminator.
No, did you?
I was on the head. Get down. My wife's like, would you shut that off? It's driving me insane. Because we'll be driving along in the car and she'll be trying to nap and I'll sneak over and turn the radio up.
Oh, that's fucking hilarious. That's hilarious. All right, so we're at the 93 Crown Vic phase. We're not yet where I was in law enforcement. So
okay, timeline's still a creeping.
I know I'm still a young buck at this point. So 1993. What's your next cruiser that you're pushing or
after that one there, it's about the same body style. Now remember, these are what we call pool cars or fleet cars. So in my area of the world, we didn't have take home cars, and through my travels throughout the United States, I've learned that kind of either you're in a large metropolitan area, they won't give you a take home car, but the majority of the rest of the officers in the United States generally have take homes,
right?
Which is really the best way to go,
right?
But the next one that I drove was a 97 Ford Crown Vic, which is basically the same body style, only a little more, I don't know, they did some cosmetics to it. But 97 was the last year of that style. So that style went from 1992 to 1997.
So I could relate to this because this is right kind of when I started, when I was New York City had some of these, and then they had, what was the one that you told me before we went live? It wasn't
the Dodge Diplomat.
The Dodge Diplomat. That's right.
Mm-hmm. 318 cubic inch. Most of them had a 2-barrel.
Fast fucking car, man. I remember that car. Oh yeah, there it is. Oh, I just went from 6 to midnight looking at this. Dude, this brings back memories. The trunk on this thing
sleeps 3 men and a boy.
Holy shit. And then there was called the interrogation hood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Statute of limitations is over, but they used to call it the interrogation hood because there was pretty much no insulation between the engine and the hood.
Yeah. So the heat came right through it.
Yeah. So when you laid somebody out or frisked them on the hood, it was toasty. Because I remember during winter time in New York City, we would pull over and sit on the hood and warm up, and you could only sit on there for so long before your fucking plastic pants
are adhering to your skin.
Yeah, you're like, wow, this is getting really hot.
Oh yeah,
but what a great car! Cages. Did you have? When did you start? Or it was pretty much right away. Cages, right?
Yeah, we had prisoner containment in all of them, and it went from just basic to vinyl covered, 2-inch square wire with plywood down low. That was the first one. I'm like, what the fuck is this? But the later ones have Satina Manufacturing. Shout out to them.
Yeah.
Did a lot of the prisoner containment.
I don't remember in the Dodge Diplomat. I'm almost 100% sure we didn't have a prisoner separator, like in '96, which
a lot of the bigger agencies didn't do it. I know for a long time, our state agency, they didn't have cages in the car. When they would put you in the car, they had a cable and an eyelet in the back seat, and they would set you there, and they would run this cable up through your cuffs and then clip it back into the floor. What the? Or in the front, or they just put you in the front seat, put the belt around you because you were sitting on your hands.
Yeah, and we didn't we didn't have to worry about like you used to be able to hog tie back then.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I kept a hobble in my bag up till 3 years before I retired.
Yeah, it turned. You used to be able to handcuff in the back and pull the legs, like handcuff the legs together, and then hog tie, and then put them on their stomach.
Mm-hmm. Until that positional asphyxia thing started kicking in.
The science started.
Whoops. Yeah.
Why are we losing so many people? No, I mean, it was bad. It was bad. I remember that. And, but we didn't have a lot of that in New York, because if you acted a fool, they would just call the paddy wagon to come out and come get you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. See, you guys, the bigger agencies had wagons, whereas out in rural farm communities to where I worked at, we didn't have that luxury, so I had to deal with them.
Yeah. And, I remember quite a few incidences where they were like really, really, as my dog is barking like crazy. That's UPS guy.
And getting packages delivered
every day, man. My house is like a warehouse. It's like it's just crazy. And hold on.
You had to hit the mute there. So while you're dealing with that, let everybody know what a hobble is, or hog ties. When you have a prisoner cuffed and you make basically like a figure eight around their feet, and then you take the other end of it, it's kind of like a dog leash, up through the cuffs, and then strap them in, and then put the people on their face, and then they bend their knees up to their hands. So especially if they start kicking, they're just kicking against their own handcuffs. And especially after the OC, or early resin capsicum, come out, that's just basically a defensive spray that we'd spray you with, pepper spray. And then of course it's hard to breathe, and laying on your chest like that, you're not able to take those deep breaths. So there was a few deaths back in the 90s due to what we call a positional asphyxia. So they're like, no, that doesn't happen anymore. So
and I think that creeped up right around who was it? Floyd, with the Chevette hearing. There was some positional.
They were talking, positional asphyxia with him.
That was the first time civilians were really exposed to what that really meant. But we've been warned about that for a long, long time. Like, and if you handcuff somebody on their stomach, you got to quickly either roll them over on their side or get them, or put them in. I mean, good officers were doing that stuff. Like we're actually listening. But occasionally you would get that one officer that's like, fuck him, he ran, and you were like, he fucking guy's gonna fight. Guys just, it's crazy.
Well, and that's what I tell my guys. Hey, you got him in the back of your car. You don't need to keep hazing them after that. It's done. Yeah. And I was, as much as I was good at tuning people up, I always did the tune down. I'd open the door and say, hey man, what do we have to get like that for, bro? You could have just stopped and saved us the fun, but hey, Oh, man,
it always makes for uncomfortable. Yeah, it makes for an uncomfortable ride to booking.
Well, but like in my world, I still had to fingerprint the fucker yet, so I have another good quality of hour time with you.
With us, we had to transport, and then the deputies kind of took care of like the booking process. But you still had to interact with them until you got your warrant, and then you'd have to like issue the warrant. And it always, like 99% of the time, you go to hand them the warrant, and they'd fucking throw it right back at you, and you're like, still arrested. See you in court.
Yeah, bro, this don't end. It's like, sorry. Ooh, you really upset me. You threw my warrant back. One notable note. I'm sorry.
That's your copy, sir. Not mine.
If you don't show up to court, I don't give a fuck. You'll have another one. So when everyone thought that, one notable note, since we're between 93 and 97, and 1996, I believe, was the last year for the Caprice.
Ooh, was it?
Yes.
1996.
May want to hit the old Googler there and confirm that, but I believe 1996 was the last year for it, and that's when most cops back then thought the world was going to come to a screeching halt. But so what GM did then, they were also producing the 9C1 Tahoe. They started developing because the Caprice and the Tahoe were made at the same Arlington, Texas plant. Believe so. Fact check me there. But so that's when they started coming out with the Tahoe as their replacement for the Caprice.
1996 for that Tahoe?
I believe so.
Let me take a look.
Because I remember the city of Dayton bought a couple, and I think they had them up at the airport because Dayton also has airport police.
God, dude, I drove this.
Did you really?
My department in Virginia had a couple of these left over.
They weren't bad cars. They really weren't. They came in 2-wheel drive only.
Yeah, but at the time that I got mine was in like 05, 06. So these things were destroyed, man. They smelled like broken dreams and
ass and feet's what I like to tell everybody.
This was a beast. I remember these were a beast, man. Very roomy inside. The folks that drive Tahoes, I'm looking at the new Tahoes because they're mixing them in with the pictures. Man, some of these Tahoes look sick.
Oh yeah,
imagine driving this as a police cruiser. I'd never leave them.
Right.
These are gorgeous.
Well, and it's, it's like what I like to tell everybody, especially when I'm teaching at the basic academy, because I'm a driving instructor there in the basic academy. I said, right now is the best time to be a cop as far as what platforms you're driving, because the absolute best platforms are now. Everybody talks about those old big blocks of, the late 70s. And like, well, they're great cars. I mean, they would go straight fast, but they didn't turn. They didn't handle. They sure as the fuck didn't stop, because some of the earlier ones had drum brakes even on the front, so you kind of had to, have a little finesse when driving the car.
That was my next question to you, was why now are they better off than they were before? And you hit it on the head. And also the big part was safety, like safety now.
Oh gosh, yes.
Man, I've had my fair share of accidents. I was talking to a former coworker of mine. Him and I still talk to each other.
Well, good.
He was just, but he left the department before I left the department. He was a sergeant as well. And we still talk to each other all the time. And he was joking around about how many cruiser accidents I had. And I was like, man, yeah, I've been in quite a few cruiser accidents.
Were they your fault or were you being hit?
Never my fault. Never.
That's the answer I was hoping you'd have.
Yeah. I've always been hit by other cars while going to another, like a call or a mechanical failure of the car. Like I've had a tire blowout while I'm on my way to the car, and the car handled like shit, and I drove into a tree. Like stupid shit like that.
Oops. Yeah.
But I had a dickhead sergeant when I had some of these cruiser accidents, and I was fucking raked through the coals, man. Like he was like fucking pissed. Like I was
like, why are you mad? It's not your car.
Yeah. And then he would give me shitty cars as assignments, even though like I was one of the senior people on my group. And I would get a shitty car. And I was like, it wasn't until I was a sergeant where I actually got nice new cars, like nice, like fresh out of the dealership, beautiful cars.
Yeah. Clean.
Like nobody ass smelling there.
Like the officer that likes to drink beer and eat chicken wings on his days off, that comes back to work and punishing the seat.
I will tell you, when I was a patrol officer, and I worked in Virginia, it was a pretty decent size agency, so we had a lot of pool cars, and I had one cruiser mate, we would call it, because when you're working, they're off. When they were not working, you're off. And I would always come in, and there would be fucking food wrappers on the floor, coffee stains all over the place, gummy bears everywhere. I mean, it was fucking disgusting. And I was so nice about it at first. I'd send an email. I would be like, "Hey, listen, this is the third time you've left the car with a quarter of gas in there, and it's dirty. And you get out, you hit the street earlier than I do, so the car wash is open when you're working. it's closed on midnights because I don't hit the street till 9 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
All the car washes are closed. I get out at 8 o'clock in the morning. Like, go take the car for a fucking car wash.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'd pay for like a self car wash out of my own pocket, like in the middle of the night. Because I took pride in my car. Like, I took pride in the wheels being shiny and the car being clean and all that other shit.
Me too.
And finally, I got tired of it, man. One day I came in. It was the last and final draw. He had taken a suspect to jail, and I, do the old flashlight sweep in the back to make sure there's no weapons. And the shit was like, there was pee in the back of it. And I was like, I'm fucking done. So I popped the hood. At the end of the shift, I popped the hood, and I pulled the fuse out for the starter.
Take another car, buddy.
And then he never got to use that car again. So it was basically my car. And then, like, I think the first time I did it, he had the car towed to our shop, our repair shop, which was right next to our headquarters.
Right.
When I couldn't find the car, I was like, oh, this fucking guy had it towed. So I'd walk right next to our police headquarters, and I'd see the car there, and I would just fleet key, open the hood, put the fucking fuse in there, and then
drive.
And I was like, and then I wish there was like a hidden camera for him to come back the next day and get parked at headquarters, and he's like, "Oh, they fixed it." Key in,
nothing. And the guys at the shop probably thought he was fucking nuts. It's like, dude, it's over here. It's fine. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Did you ever have the guys that wouldn't cover their face when they sneeze? So when you got in there at night, you saw the blast up into the windshield. It's like, you sick fucker. Or the guys that would wipe their boogers on the side of the stinking seat. It's like,
it's so disgusting. Like,
gross.
I don't know about you, but like, I had multiple duty bags. I had bags that I put in the trunk, and then there was the bag that was on the passenger seat.
Yeah.
Because we drove one to a car. I had one bag that was strictly cleaning gear. Like, it was a bag full of window washing cleaner, Febreze, a tub of Lysol disinfectants. But this was way before COVID.
Right.
Hand sanitizer gel. It was just basically a whole cleaning kit for the fucking car.
Right.
Because that's how dirty some of these fucks are. Like, how does your fucking house look? Or how does your POV look? You dirty fuck.
Some of them look like a rolling dumpster, because I've seen some of these guys when they come to work. I'm like, and that's not why your damn patrol car looks terrible.
It's terrible.
But it's like what we talked about before, Nick. Where's the stripes? I mean, when you became a stripe, I mean, were you over your people like that too, or walk by the cruise and say, "Hey, you want to get that bucket of chicken on the floor before you get out of here tonight?" Oh, what do you mean, Sarge?
Yeah. So when we were like, I'm sure you had to do the same thing. We did vehicle inspections. I think it was once a month.
Yeah.
But I really harped on my folks. I was very lucky as a sergeant. There was only like one really dirty motherfucker. He wasn't just dirty like his cruiser was dirty. He was just a dirty fucking human being. Ugh. Let me tell you, they don't tell you this when you want to become a sergeant. You never in your wildest imagination would think that you would have to sit down with a grown human being, a grown man with a wife and child or children, and tell them that they smell, that they're dirty.
Yeah.
That they've worn their uniform far too many times. We've all done it. We all try and get at least 2 or 3 uses out of a uniform before we throw it in the dry cleaners. Unless you're in a tussle, or there's blood, or there's poo-poo, or pee-pee, or whatever. This dude would go, I want to say, a month or 2.
Oh, my God.
And he would sit at his desk, because I was in charge of a special unit. He would sit at a desk. And then it was funny because the other guys that were in the unit would one by one come in my office and be like, "Hey, you got to talk to so-and-so, because I want to throw up. Like, it smells like dirty asshole."
Oh, God.
And it's classic top 5.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Here we go.
But his response was like, "Really? I don't smell anything."
Yeah, they go nose blind to it. It's like in the spring where the guys, "Hey, time to wash the vest there, bro." When you start warming up outside and that vest gets a little funky.
Well, you see, you just dated yourself even more because the day, these folks now are spoiled with the outer carries because with the outer carry. But I remember the undercarry fucking work it took to clean that fucking thing. Like,
yes,
you would have to clean the carrier that the vest went into, the Kevlar went into. And then if you were smart, you would clean the Kevlar. It's not like today where there's a bazillion products out there now for Kevlar. You remember Mark, back in the day, so many restrictions in the 90s.
Correct.
Don't get wet. Don't soak. Don't do this. Don't do that. Because they were like, it's going to loosen the fibers. And they'd scare the shit out of you.
Oh, yeah. The only thing you could do was take a damp cloth with light whatever, like Dawn dishwashing liquid or something like that, and wipe it off. That's it. That's the only thing they let you do.
And that's what
Febreze the fuck out of it.
Correct. And what I did was I took Dawn and water and put it in a spray bottle, and I would shake it up.
Oh, yeah. That was a good
soak down the Kevlar and wipe it.
Yeah.
And then leave it in my locker hanging on a hanger to air dry for the next shift.
Yeah.
And then I would take the carrier home with me. And
we kept box fans in the locker room just to circulate the air so they would dry out between shifts. But at least once a week during the summer, because we were on a 5 and 2 schedule, that thing came home, the carrier got washed, and I hose it off, meaning wipe it down, and I'd let it air dry outside, just like on the clothesline, or put it on a hanger and hang it out on the back porch, because that was the only way you could keep it fresh underneath. Otherwise, it was just, and you get that funky. Ugh. I mean, football players can, with your pads when you're doing 2-a-days, because when I was playing football, and how stinky that stuff would get. That's how the carriers got. So, ugh.
I didn't play football, but like when I was doing figure skating, it was the same.
So, who was? Oh, thank God. I can think of the turn. There's a joke I got brewing here. Keep going. Who was there? Who was Tanya Harding's? That's who I can't remember.
Tanya Harding and fuck. Tanya.
I'm trying to Google this real quick. She's from up north. Yeah, I figured you'd remember real quick.
Oh man, it's escaping me. And there's a movie about Margot Robbie was Tanya in I, Tanya.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Fuck, what's her name? The one that got her kneecap shattered. Fuck.
There we go. I just found it. Tanya Harding incident. Nancy Kerrigan.
Nancy Kerrigan.
Yeah, Nancy and Kerrigan. Yep.
That poor girl, man.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tanya Harding or Nancy Kerrigan, which knee are you going to take?
Well, and what's funny is, and I know this is the Cars episode, but I love reminiscing and us going off in tangents. But like under carry vest, the folks have no idea. Like this was pre Under Armour, that pre.
Oh yeah, we only had white t-shirts.
So on a hot summer day, like and I'm sure it's the weather gets like that in Ohio, in Virginia, bro. The summers were so fucking brutal. I would come home.
Yeah.
And bring out my t-shirt in sweat. Just
literally.
Sweat.
Yes.
And then they came out with the fucking Under Armour shirts. And I got nothing against Under Armour. I own a whole bunch of Under Armour shirts, like the loose ones. But those ones that they had that they advertise, like the dry fit ones.
Right.
One, I always felt like I was wearing a condom on my body.
Exactly.
And two, I just felt like, I don't know. I felt like I was wearing a condom full of water. Like
because it wicked the water away, but where did it all run?
Yeah.
Down the crack of your ass. So it made it worse for me.
Yeah. I'd have swamp ass. I remember getting unchanged and my boxers would be like completely drenched. And I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah. And then you realize I don't want this moisture wicking undershirt.
No,
and it's fine if you're running, but you don't want to be wearing that under a. And did you have the ribbed? Did you ever use the ribbed shirt that they came out with?
Yeah,
where it kind of held your vest off you like a half inch.
It didn't last long. That didn't last long for me at all. I tried the little gadget that some other officer invented, which was the hose that comes
that you put on the vent and then you tucked it under your vest.
Yeah, and then you get fucking pneumonia. I got, and I got another story for you. There was an officer in my old agency And there were rumblings that he would disappear off the street in the middle of the shift to go to the locker room and go take a shower and get redressed. I know, super, super unprofessional, right? And I remember being a sergeant, and I was a brand new sergeant. And this officer was assigned to the lower part of the city, very busy part of the city. And he's marked out as busy on the computer. And I'm a new sergeant, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I call up one of his teammates. I'm like, yo, where is so-and-so? And they're like, Nick, you know where he is. And I'm like, is he? Don't tell me. And so I fucking go into the locker room, and he's in the shower, fucking taking a shower. And he's got his gun, belt, and everything on the floor, new uniform ready to put on. And I called up the dispatch, and I was like, I want you to send him a test call. I want you to send him a test call, priority 1 call for a shooting. Alert tone and everything. And they fucking sent it to him, and he never responded. Like, he never responded. So as soon as he got dressed, I was waiting right outside the locker room, and I was like, yo, come with me. And we had a heart-to-heart, and I never was an asshole supervisor. I sat down with him, and I was like, check your mobile computer. He's like, I didn't get any calls. I'm marked busy. I go, just because you're marked busy doesn't mean anything. If everybody gets tied up and you're marked busy that you're doing paper, you're going to get pulled off. I said, what if that was an officer? What if that was one of your fellow officers that was in the middle of a shootout? I said, you're in the shower right now.
Yeah, you're taking the freaking shower, dude. Just
this dumb. He wound up getting fired for something else, but he was a fucking dummy, man. Just stupid shit like that.
Isn't it amazing? But there again, and good for you that you addressed that, because who was the guy before that allowed that to happen? And this is what I always told my people: look, today's exception isn't tomorrow's policy. I'm going to help you out today, but this isn't going to become a habit.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
And our policy was no unauthorized sleeping on duty. And, most of my guys, we're new guys, always came to midnights, and they got families at home, and worse yet, heaven forbid, the guys have young families at home. Yep. They ain't getting any sleep during the day. Yep. And they're struggling. I'm like, get your ass on station and take a nap.
Yeah.
Take 30, 45 minutes. Again, this exception isn't tomorrow's policy. Don't make this every night, but get your stuff squared away.
We would even self-police ourselves in the group. Like, we would butt up cars. And it was an officer that was like, same thing, had a young family at home and stuff. We would turn around. It was a slow night. Buddy system, be like, hey, take a half an hour and I got your back. I'll watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We've done that before. Yeah. Here, you pull in. I'll face the street. You go ahead, doored up. Go ahead and rock your seat back and, snooze it up, and I'll watch. And then when you're done,
then I go.
I get to take a nap. Yeah.
Funny story about that is a coworker of mine I went to the academy with used to do that. And we were parked in a shopping center because we were told that we had to, when we weren't busy and we were doing paper or we were just fucking off, we had to stay in busy areas.
Okay.
So we're in this busy shopping center. And I remember it was like 3:30 in the morning. It was a winter night. Nothing going on. It was quiet, eerily quiet, Mark. One of those nights where you're like, something's going to pop off,
Mm-hmm.
And so he's sleeping. I'm watching his back and truly watching his back. I'm not on my phone. I'm not on the computer. I'm not fucking around. I'm literally head on a swivel. And we're probably about, I want to say like 100 yards away across the road. I can see a storefront.
Oh, wow.
I'm watching it and I'm seeing a figure looking into the window of the business.
Here we go.
So my buddy who's sleeping, I want to be 100% sure, but it's pitch black dark, but I could see this figure weaving back and forth, looking in the window, weaving back and forth. And finally I make the decision, hey, listen, this is going to be a commercial Berg. I got to wake him up. So I wake him up and I go, hey, you got to get up. He's like, what's going on? I go, somebody's breaking into the sign store across Duke Street. And he goes, get the fuck out of it. So he's facing away from it. So he goes, are you fucking with me right now? I go, dude, I would not wake you up. Somebody's seriously breaking in. And he's like, all right. He goes, I don't want to pull around you. He goes, I'm going to try and get out of the car. And I'm like, dude, it's like fucking 3 inches between you and me.
You're not going to do that, bro.
He goes, I'm going to climb over to the passenger side and put out the passenger. It's like a fucking Three Stooges episode, bro. I swear to God.
How about I just put my car in drive and pull forward?
Don't do it. You give away our position. I was like, the car's already started.
Yeah.
I got my warning lights on, but not blinking warning lights, just to get those on.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I'm gonna sneak out the passenger side. Okay.
Oh, God.
And he's like, just keep an eye on them. So he gets out. I wound up pulling up anyway because now I got to get out of the car.
Right. Yeah, you ain't doing that shit.
I'm not Spider-Manning across the fucking thing. Right?
And I'm not that agile.
Yeah. So, of course, I think we had maybe like 2-3 years on the job, and we were fairly new. And so we got our guns out and we're starting to walk the 100 yards. And so excited, I get on the radio and I go, 302 to headquarters. I got a commercial burglary in progress. Headquarters is like, 302, come again? I'm like, I got a commercial burglary in progress, 3000 block of Duke Street. Send me units. And we're getting closer and we're creeping and we're creeping and we're creeping. And we both realize that at the same time, it is a bush.
Blowing in the wind.
In the wind. Hitting the window. Hitting the window.
Whoops.
And he looks at me, and it's cold, dude. We weren't wearing our jackets because we were in the car.
Right.
It was cold. And he looked at me and he was like, you are a fucking piece of shit.
Dispatch disregard.
Yeah. That's the most embarrassing part because you could hear the sirens in the distance.
Oh, yeah.
Coming close.
You just woke everybody else up, too.
And so one by one, you hear them shutting off. Mark, you know this. They're still fucking coming. Right?
Oh, yeah, they are.
Because they want to hear the story. And so the way our unit numbers worked was 300 was the lieutenant on duty, 301 was the sergeant, and then it went succession by officer, 302, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So, of course, this was the dickhead sergeant that I worked for. I hear on the radio, 301, send me the call. And I was like, hey, 302 to 301, it's not going to be a Berg.
Right.
He goes, 10-4, still send me the call. And I'm like, fuck. I had to fucking debrief him, and he was fucking pissed. And I got the riot act, and I was like, can't you just enjoy the funny story?
We can be a dick for all the time.
Wow.
Just because you're miserable doesn't mean everybody has to be miserable.
I'm like, why are you a miserable prick? Just that I thought of that story because, because as we tell these stories, it's funny because I remember the cars very well because of how easy they were to maneuver.
Right. What car were you in then?
At that point, I was still in a Crown Vic.
Okay.
I was still in a Crown Vic. It was towards the tail end of Crown Vics. Like they were getting worked out of the system. Like they were trying to cross over to Chargers.
Ah, yeah. The garage queens.
Yeah. Horrible transmissions.
Mm-hmm.
The chief at the time, not the dickhead chief that I had, but the chief at the time was like, we're going to go 100% Dodge Charger fleet. So he must have attended some sort of Dodge presentation or something. And
well,
we
being a fleet manager for my small department, I used to go to an event and shout out to our good friend Lisa McDade and the Kingwell, one brother anyway. It's a thing called Police Fleet Expo, and they had that around the country year round. And we would be able to go down there and drive all the different cars and be able to meet the people that built them and the engineers, which was really cool. So I like the Charger, and it's a good vehicle for take home cars.
Yes,
but nothing as robust as the Crown Vic was. And give a little bit of history. That platform of Crown Vic went from 1979 to 2011. So September 15th of 2011, the last Crown Vic rolled off the line and ended up going to Saudi Arabia. So it was kind of cool that the St. Thomas plant in Canada, I think all the plant workers signed the underside of the hood, but man, But I about give my eye teeth to have the last Crown Vic.
Aren't they bringing it back? I heard rumors they were bringing back.
That rumor is always out.
Yeah.
And from my contacts, I don't know. Did I share this with you that I was on the Ford Police Advisory Board from 2012 to 2015? So on my contacts, my friends that are still there, they're like, no, the name's not coming back, not anytime soon. But because Ford's transitioning out of sedans, the last I saw, that's why they got rid of the
Taurus.
The
Taurus was terrible.
The police versions, you got the Interceptor sedan, which is based on the Taurus platform, and then the Interceptor utility based on the Explorer. But
I like the Explorer, but the Taurus was too small.
So is the Charger. I whack my head every time I get in the Charger. And the same thing with the sedan is because that slope of the A-pillar in the front, anybody with any size, because they put a lot of effort into the sedan. And then when they come out, we'll try the utility too, because it's the same platform.
Yeah.
And the only difference is the utility is 300 pounds heavier. It's the same transmission, same platform, same wheel, same tire, same. So you can have basically the same thing. And then we got what's called the Crown Vic mentality. So from 1998 when they come out with that design change. So the 97 was the last one that I drove there in Covington. And then by the time I went to the sheriff's department, they were buying the newer style Crown Vic. So from 98 to 2011 is basically the same car. And then in 2003 is where they had a really big changeover in the front end. They went to McPherson strut, front suspension, and tune up of the 4.6 liter V8. And so from the 03 and newer, those are really great cars. But from 98 to 2011, they were just swapping equipment out. And that's what come up with that attitude, the Crown Vic. You just bought a new car and took all the old shit off the other one. So when my 2011 came out of service, it had the partition in it from a 1998 model car.
Oh, shit.
So they swapped over equipment. So the theory was how much of this equipment could we take out of these Crown Vics and make fit these new cars because of that attitude, which was, it was just the crown, and that's why I call it the Crown Vic mentality. And once we realized, we're doing a lot of extra work to try and make this shit fit. Just, sell it, leave the car built, sell it that way, and just buy stuff that fits your new platform. So that's what we decided at my agency to go with the utility. I went to a ride and drive event over at Lucas Oil Field that Ford sponsored, which is in Indianapolis. And I tell you what, I was super impressed with the utility. Wasn't the fastest car in the world. Now, if you got the EcoBoost, the twin turbo, but what are we? We're the government. You get the cheapest shit money buys. Well, I'm not spending all that extra money for an engine that runs fast.
Yep.
Okay. So we got the regularly aspirated, but hell, the 4.6 liter V8 was 260, 280 horsepower. And that V6 was 305. It's like,
and if you're in a city urban area, you don't really need much.
Yeah.
You don't need much power.
Yeah. And then that's what my boss said. Well, you don't need all that power. How do you know what I need?
Yeah.
You out there running the interstate at night, chasing people down like I am? No.
They wouldn't let us on the interstate, even though 95 and 395 run through the city. They would really get down on us about like running traffic on the interstate. They're like, that's what state police is for. You need to be in the city dealing with city crime.
Mm. Yeah, we had a little bit of that too.
But what I hear every once in a while, like if you're using the interstate to get from one part of the city to the other, and you see something, yeah, by all means. But we had folks, and I do agree, because when I became a sergeant and so on, I started to see it. I started to see officers that wanted to be state troopers. So they would hang out on 95 and they'd run radar and they'd get somebody for, 100 miles an hour. And then it would tie them up for 3-4 hours with a DUI or something like that. And you're like,
right.
Well, while that's going on, we got officers banging calls for service for domestics and like real crime, and I'm not downgrading. DW are a real crime, but that is the reason why that there are state troopers there. If you want to be a state trooper, go to state trooper school.
Or why doesn't the agency have a traffic division? If you want to run traffic, then here, get on the traffic division, do it there. Yeah. And that's where the Charger really shines. That Hemi Charger,
we didn't
man, that dude runs great.
Yeah, we got the cheap ass
V6,
like Mercedes-Benz transmission. So at 60,000 miles, they were
threw them in the street
up, dude. Like the 2 major accidents that I had, both of those were with Dodge Chargers.
Is that right?
Yep. The one I can tell you, probably FD Donnie could probably talk to it too, is that Chargers, they cut up real nice by the jaws of life.
I had lunch with FD today, and he was talking about his vehicle. We were talking about a class that he did for vehicle. What do we call it? Extra, whatever.
Extraction.
Cutting people. Yeah, extraction. There we go. Yeah.
Extraction. Yeah. I got to send you a picture of the Dodge Charger that they'd cut the roof off and peeled it back to get me out of the car.
Oh my God. Were you okay?
It was bad. I was going lights and siren through an intersection. And I've said this a million times on this show. If you're running lights and siren, folks, you should be stopping at an intersection, or at least
absolutely
make eye contact with everybody. I was never one of those people that were like, lights and siren beats rock, paper, scissors. And you just
right.
And I had made it through the intersection. I was just about to clear it, and this lady went around an ambulance that was stopped at the intersection. She went around it. She T-boned me. I spun around 3 times.
Oh, good Lord.
When I spun around, my head hit the shotgun rack. I was out. Remember anything? I woke up to them cutting me out of the car. That's all.
Oh, man.
And
sorry you had to go through that.
Oh, it was, you know what? That was nothing compared to having the sheriff's deputy, like 6 months later, serve me with a $3 million lawsuit.
Whoops.
Yep. And that got thrown out of court, and then she sued me again for $3 million.
And that got thrown out.
And then
that,
but that one got far. Like, if you've never been in a deposition, it's they suck. Like, I was putting my bank accounts in my wife's name. I mean, it was bad. I was very, very scared I was going to lose. I mean, they subpoenaed my social media accounts.
Had that done too.
They run
well, and while you're talking about that, Nick, for everyone that's listening right now, if you're a homeowner, talk to your insurance agent. I'm not being paid to say this, but I'm just telling you from experience is that you can get $1 million liability rider for your home, and it's minimal, and it is so worth it. So and that's where they talk about, oh, what about your pension? And what about, well, you need to start talking about some civil liability.
Yeah.
And it's just like with you're just out doing your damn job, and this clown, and was she found at fault in the crash?
So, the officer that showed up at the accident was not a big fan of mine.
Oh, good Lord.
Fucked the whole investigation. He didn't even
a
citation for failure to yield an emergency vehicle. And if he had done that, it would have been a done deal. But what she did was she waited to file the suit. So the statute of limitations was 2 years. She waited till 1 year.
8 months.
Or something.
That's what they do.
Yeah. And so you can't retroactively charge her that this officer
right
do his job. And of course he's a sergeant now. And on top of that, when they took my cruiser to the shop because it was totaled, I mean, they cut the top off. They weren't going to repair it. All of my gear went missing. Everything.
Oh, no.
All of my shit, my duty bags, all my shit. And guess who had to pay for all that stuff? Because it was city property. Me.
You did. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we found it a year later, hidden in a closet in headquarters. Somebody from Fleet took it out and put it in this closet and didn't tell anybody. So of course, when I go to city finance and I say, hey, I'd like my $750 back, they were like, go pound sand.
Yeah. You can eat it.
Okay, cool. Now I own this equipment. It's sitting in my garage. Every once in a while.
I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing at the hypocrisy of it.
It's so fucking bonkers, bro.
And they wonder why cops are all bailing out of this industry, and then they're wanting to take qualified immunity away from us.
Oh, that's coming.
It's like, what the hell is wrong with you people out there? You're going to have crime rampant in the streets now.
Yeah.
And how are you going to protect these guys who are just trying to do their job?
Yeah,
and in my world, we would always have an outside agency do the investigation, just to have someone else another set of eyes on it. And I always recommend doing your own parallel. So for like in ours, we either had the state agency or the county agency come take the crash. And then I always recommended, no, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to just compare notes. Have both agencies there, both agencies doing the same work. It's not my hoo-hoo's bigger than yours.
Yep.
It's we both should come up with the same result at the end. And if we don't, we need to sit down and talk about this because someone's not doing the math right or whatever else. So always insist. And if they don't, there's tons of retired accident recon guys out there, tons of them. Hey, buddy, let me pay you a couple of $100, take a look at these numbers for me or this crash scene and come up with your own and do that immediately because you're so right, Nick. They will wait till the end of the statute of limitations running out and they'll drop that lawsuit.
Yep. And I think the person who the officer who fucked me over, he was really pissed because in Virginia, you have to do what's called an FR 300. It's like a fucking long report. It's diagrams and it's calculations and shit like that. And it was before it was automated. We had shortly after that, we had a report management system where it was basically filling in idiot blocks.
Yeah.
It wasn't there during that time. And so this lady, after she hit me, she bounced off of me and she hit 3 parked cars. So that was a lot of fucking work, man. A lot of fucking work. I wouldn't like to do it, but I also fuck somebody.
Yeah, the crash recon guys, that's what they do. It's your bread and butter. I mean, I love doing impaired driver enforcement. Everybody's like, oh, I hate doing in Ohio, it's OVI, but everywhere else it's DUI or DWI, whatever. I love doing impaired driver.
Same. I loved it. I loved it so much that I had it down to a science where when we did DUI details, I would get 3 or 4 in one night because I streamlined the process of paperwork. So I would go drop one off, get the intoxilizer done, get that, go to the magistrate, go get the warrants, fill out everything I needed to do and get back on the street. And I'd save the report for later on.
Yeah, let's get it done. Yeah.
Quadruple stack it till the end of the night. And it was fun because you would get people off the street that were double the legal limit, but there are folks like you and I, they aren't out there anymore, my friend. Because as a civilian, I drive around and I'm like, that person's drunk. And there is a difference between playing on your phone and being drunk.
Susan and I were coming back from feeding the horses the other day. We were down in Florida, and if anybody's familiar with Route 19 that runs up the West Coast, it's 3 lanes each direction, north and south, and we're rolling along. And this guy's in lane number 2, which is the middle lane, and he is line to line, damn near. And she's like, "What's wrong with this guy?" I said, "He's drunk as fuck." I said, let's hurry him, get around him, because if we get too close to him, I may have to pit him.
and I think you probably were the same. You were probably the same way. I could pretty much pinpoint what their BAC was.
And
I was
just with the eyes with SFSTs,
and I was pretty accurate. I was plus or minus 03. I was pretty accurate after a while. And even as a sergeant, man, I still signed up for those DUI details. I love doing them. Going to court for them sucks at first.
Oh, I love going to court, dude. Loved it.
But a lot of our defense attorneys, after a while, they got to know that you were no fuck
shit square. Yeah. That's right. They walk into the prosecutor and say, "What are you offering?"
Yeah.
We don't want to go to trial on this. What are you offering?
Yeah, Virginia was a standard deal. You pay this attorney $5,000-$10,000, but it was a standard deal. I mean,
really?
Yeah, you can go in there yourself, represent yourself, and be like, "Hey, I want to plead guilty. What kind of offer do I get?" And it's 180 days suspended, restricted license, and then passing alcohol safety classes was really low for the first offense. Really, really low. And all you had to do is just stay clean for 180 days. Don't get in any trouble. And that's it.
That's easy enough. Yeah. That's one thing I didn't like about the OVI laws is, they kept wanting to make them stiffer and stiffer and stiffer because of these repeat offenders. It's the poor guy that's he's a family man now and he doesn't party with the boys and say they're out at a wedding and they're throwing back up. Yeah, let's do some shots like we used to. He's had one too many and then, hey guys, I got to go. And he doesn't realize that valve at the bottom of your stomach's going to open up here in a minute.
Yeah.
Dump all that alcohol right into your upper intestine. And that's the guy that gets screwed.
Yeah.
Whereas these guys that are habitually driving drunk, public defender guys or just don't have a license and don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that just, how are these guys out of jail? And why are we making the laws stiffer and stiffer for the people that we just want to minister to justice on,
Well, and I don't typically on this show, I typically don't get into debates of like sentencing and how crazy sentencing is. And maybe that's probably an episode that should happen. And it's just insanity. When
we should have a municipal court prosecutor come on and say, here's how it's really like, guys. Let's make a deal time.
Maybe I do have a phone call into the Manhattan DA's office to see if he'll come on the show, but I don't. They tell me he's pretty busy.
Mr. Bragg. Yeah.
They tell me he's pretty busy. But it's insanity that like you can get more jail time for having, like a half a pound of weed.
Yeah.
And your third DUI is like 5 days in jail. Like it's insanity. Like, so when we talk about organizations that I fully get behind, like MAD,
mm-hmm.
always support them. Like I'm so for what they're talking about.
Oh, sure.
There are parts let me back up. There are parts where lowering the BAC down to 0.05, I think is a little aggressive, because when you see somebody at a 0.05 versus a 0.08, 0.09, there is a drastic difference.
Yes. And to stipulate to that, because I run the wet lab at the academy, and a lot of people's like, oh my God, I'm so fucked up. And we test them. They're like 04, 05. I'm like, we ain't there yet. And they're like, we're going to keep drinking. I'm like, yeah, I need to get you up to 0.08 or 0.10. And by the time we get them there, they're blasted. And some people are, not able to perform. But I think that the 05, I don't embrace that. I think 08 is a good number. Mm-hmm. But in Uber and Lyft, what I disagree with is the fact that I think the law is working, but with these old hats that our administrators are still trying to set the standard, or they did pre-COVID, with like back in the 90s and back in the early 2000s, where it was like shooting fish in a barrel. It's like, it just, there's been nights when I've gotten 3 OVIs in the shift, in an 8-hour shift. Yeah. It's like those days aren't there anymore. It's hard to find one a week anymore.
Yeah.
When at the end of my career. So, people are smarter. I mean, like the bars in my city, they had some of their bar back was an Uber driver. Hey man, you need a ride? Yeah. Here, get on your app, and Rocco here will take you home.
But that's what they started doing. I find pleasure in that. If the DUI numbers are going down, not because that there are less people doing DUIs, because that could probably be the issue too, is that these younger officers don't have the mentors that you and I, like I had a DUI guy in my department. This guy used to get 250 DUIs a year. So he was the guy to go to when I was getting rejections for the preliminary breath test out on the street. I went to him and I was like, listen, I can't get anybody to blow into the PBT. And he's like, do a DUI on me right now. Go through everything. And I would go through everything, and he was like, it's your presentation for the PBT. He's like, your field sobriety tests, perfect. He goes, it's your presentation for the PBT. You're basically giving him an opportunity, or her an opportunity to bow out of it, instead of putting it in a way where it benefits them.
Yeah.
He goes, it's all about making them feel like it benefits them. And then from that moment on, I never got a rejection from a PBT. And but the other thing is I wasn't real dependent on PBT. Like, that's I don't want to say junk science, but it's not 100% accurate. Like,
correct. And in Ohio, it's not admissible either, because the preliminary breath tester is just, most of them test a little bit low anyway.
Yes.
And the reason why I carried them in the cars was because we used to have a lot of underage drinking parties. And whenever we got called there, I mean, we had like 20, 30 kids we were processing. So if we each had one, had a bag of mouthpieces, we could bang them out pretty quick.
I would much rather them run out the back door.
Exactly.
Because where I was a cop, it was right outside of DC, and all these kids were fucking rich political kids.
And
their parents started showing up to release them. And it was a fucking headache, man. It was
It was like, you fuckers ain't should have anything better to do.
I'd much rather.
I do really, but now I got called here, so I'm dealing with your stupid kid. So
and as a sergeant, I remember officers marking up and being like, "Hey, I'm responding to a call with might be an underage drinking party." I would fucking grab my cell phone and be like, "Yo, to fuck your night up and fuck mine up." So I would do the Superbad movie and yell, "If you don't want to get locked up, get the fuck out of here." It sucks that it's like that, but like juvenile domestic court is fucking terrible, man.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work, and that nothing happens to these kids anyway. And it's part of life, man. It's part of life. But we're hitting the 1 hour mark on here, Mark. No pun intended.
Yeah, Mark and Mark. So, what's your favorite car?
I'm going to have to say my favorite car was just before I left the agency, which was the Tahoe. I was a supervisor and I had a Tahoe.
All right.
I liked it because it was super, super spacious. I was able to carry a lot of shit, but I didn't carry suspects as a supervisor. So I didn't have a cage in it. So it was even more.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But but I would drive around with my unit. Like I would have somebody in the passenger seat and somebody in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would like roll up in the hood and jump out of the car. And then if we had an arrest, we'd have an officer come with a cage, take them, and we'd go to booking. Not a great car, high speeds at all. Like just not good for pursuits, not good to go lights and siren, and definitely not good in the rain at all. The snow, fantastic. But other than that, I did not like. I love that car. And I was sad to see it get retired out. But I liked it. What was yours?
My favorite car is I like the 2016 to 2019, the Interceptor utility with the EcoBoost.
Very nice.
365 horsepower car. I didn't have one personally. Now, my personal car was a Ford Explorer Sport, but that platform, I think, was one of the best ones around. As fast as 0 to 60, 0 to 80, 0 to 100. That car, particularly, the reason why I liked it so well is because that's the one platform I had some influence on when I was on the board. Yeah. I think one of my favorite cars overall ever is the 1987 to 90 Chevy Caprice. And that's because the trunk, was big and wide and it wasn't deep. The car ran great. It handled great. It was roomy inside. But overall, that's my favorite overall car. But favorite cruiser now would be the Interceptor utility. Now, I understand everybody right now is complaining about the 2020 and newer utility. There were some problems with that thing, and Ford's working that out. But a couple of quick things, like the Charger all-wheel drive. Some people's like, I like the all-wheel drive. But with that platform, you have to trigger the all-wheel drive, like turn on the windshield wipers, or has to be below a certain temperature, or it's still a two-wheel drive platform. But with the Tahoe, the modern Tahoe is a nice car. It's big, and it's not. Boy, some of the officers talking about how slow everything is. I'm like, you guys realize back in the day they drove Chevy Citations with a 4-cylinder and Chrysler K cars? Some of the junk that used to be out there that they were putting out as police cars, and kind of the trend now I saw where New York City has the Ford Mach-E all electric as a patrol car. And I get it for New York, because your average speed up there, I think their fleet manager did a presentation and he said your average speed's 23.
Yeah, it's not
a lot of walking beats up there.
The only reason why I shake my head, and I'm a Tesla owner, and I know LAPD has a whole bunch of Teslas. They have a lot of BMW electric cars. I know NYPD, but I will tell you this is I shake my head because I know how officers are in like New York City and in LAPD. They're going to run these cars down to nothing and not charge them,
right,
and leave the next person fucked.
yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's like, okay, so you want to go all electric? Well, you have to double your fleet.
Yes,
because that car's going to have to sit 8 hours to charge.
Well, no, if you do it right, and you put in a super fast charger, you can charge the car to 80% in about 20-25 minutes.
Oh, okay,
yeah. So the infrastructure is there for you to charge, but the other part is that there's battery degradation. So if you charge constantly to 100% every single time, the battery starts to degrade. And that's what Tesla faces. That's what all these EV cars faces, is that Eventually, you're not going to get the mileage that you're getting when you first get it.
Yeah, because your battery's going to develop that memory.
Well, that and
is that what you mean?
Well, no, it degrades the cells in the battery to the point where you start losing the charge amount. The other part is that your range for these EV cars changes based on weather. If it's cold out, you're going to get less range.
Right.
If it's hot out, you're going to get less range because you're putting your air conditioning on. You're putting all these different things. They all take electric. So when you look at sticker of like a Tesla or a Mach-E and you see 300 miles, it's really not 300 miles. It's probably 260. It's kind of like I think of it like the movie Apollo 13. Every time you flip on a switch, ampage goes up, and you're able to use less and less things. So they're great cars. They're fast as fuck. But also with the EV cars, the other big investment that you're going to be making as a cruiser with EV cars is tires. You're going to eat through tires like fucking crazy. At 25,000 miles, those back tires are going to need to be changed.
Oh, wow.
The torque on these things are so...
Yeah.
Like, so... And these are things that EV owners know about, like, and the non-EV owners, when they buy EVs, they're like, oh, shit, like, I'm already buying a fucking pair of tires. Yeah, tires, because they are fast as shit cars. They're off the line. They are fucking crazy fast. But like, I know LAPD has a whole bunch of Teslas and stuff, and they're experiencing a problem, which is that they look great, but they are 7-year cars. They're
and that's a substantial investment for a 7-year asset. I can tell you that Lao, it's 40,000. It used to be 25,000, and they're all jacking the prices up. And then you're going to add another 20,000. So conservatively, you're thinking $60,000 for this asset. One car. Okay. So now you're going to take it. What does the average cost of an EV? What's your Tesla cost? If you don't, or average cost, not what you paid, but what does one cost?
Tesla,
a base Tesla
Model 3, probably like 50 grand, 55 grand.
All right. So now you're $10,000 to $15,000 more for a car that's going to give you less service.
Right.
And that's, and personally, as far as Mark the Cop's concerned, I think the hybrid's the way to go.
Yeah.
I really do. Everybody's like, well, I don't like the hybrid. Well, but you're going to have to get used to it. It's just like in 95, we thought the world was coming to an end when the Chevy Caprice went away. And in 2011, we thought the world was coming to an end again when my favorite car, the Crown Vic, went away.
Yep.
So what are we going to go to next? And right now is I know that the government's pushing for these EVs to be out there. And back-end usage is the Achilles heel of any fleet program. I know when we went from Crown Vic to the utility, Crown Vic's got 8 to 10 mile a gallon. I started getting 15 to 17 mile a gallon. Crown Vics, I was putting brakes and tires on at 10,000 miles. And with the new ones, it was 15 to 20. Like, wow. It's just like getting a raise. So I know with the EVs and fuel consumption, okay, we're not spending money on gasoline. What's going to be the big back end cost on battery replacement, charger stations? You get the knucklehead. Oh, it's a hot call. Oh, Sarge, I forgot to unplug it. And I blew out of the wherever charging station. I ripped the cable off.
Yep.
How test crash worthy are they? The utility, the Ford Utilities rear test crashed at 75 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've been witness to a few of those crashes. How are the EVs holding up?
Yeah. Yeah. And the big thing is that you can make the EVs work if they're assigned to the right,
correct,
specialty units, like parking enforcement, EV car, good idea. School resource officer, EV car, good idea. Community policing, good idea. But as a workhorse, as a grunt, like even detectives, you can give them Tesla Model 3s, the low model ones that have 280 mile, because they're not going lights and siren. They're not going anywhere, man. So you can make them work. I don't think that we'll ever get to the point where it'll be 100% EV unless and it is going to happen. The ranges continue to keep expanding Because I remember when EVs first came out, 90 miles was a lot. Now
that's true.
Yeah. Now you're talking 350 miles on a charge.
Right.
And they're only going to get bigger, man. I mean, you'll see to the point where you're going to get 600 miles to a full charge. But the longer the range, the longer it's going to take to charge to get to that range. So right now it's probably 15 to 25 minutes at 80%. At 600 miles, you're looking at probably an hour for it to charge, which isn't that bad because during the downtime, you just hook it up and it charges.
Right.
It's that one knucklehead, just like the one that I used to have to pull the fuse.
Right.
It's going to be
it's like, dude, you drive right by a gas station to get the post. Pull in and fill it up.
They never did. There's always that one. And then people that are listening to this are going to be like, my fucking cruiser mate does that shit all the time to me.
Yeah, they do. And there's some ways you can have fun with those people too.
Pull the fuse out.
Pull the fuse or fill the car with trash when you get off duty, so they have to deal with it.
Exactly. Or
literally pull up to the trash can there at the speedway and load the front floor up and say, here you go, buddy. Because if the stripe isn't going to do anything to him, what do you think he's going to do to you?
Yeah. Fill up the car with helium balloons. Look at us just giving bad.
Oh, well, there's a will, there's a way.
All right, Mark, we got to wrap this one up. This has been a fantastic episode.
Yeah, good time.
Folks, I want you to go ahead and tune into The Shield Within. I've been on the show. It's a fantastic show. We also have a joint show, off duty and on the air. We did one episode. We're going to be doing another one pretty soon. Our website is finally back up, fuckyouwix.com. Our website is rollcallroom.com, and our new email address is rollcallroompodcast@gmail.com. Don't email us at our other email address anymore, fuckywix.com. Mark, anything you want to say to end the show? Fuck you, Wix.
And if you're out there still doing the job, thank you very much for your willingness to be out there and put yourself out there. Take care of yourself. Take care of your partners. Remember, be people first when you're out there working. And most of all, take care of yourself. If you're willing to go out there and take care of people that you don't know, just take that extra 5 minutes a day and have a little bit of self-care.
Awesome. I love that advice. I wish I would have come up with it. All right, folks, be safe out there. Take good care of each other. And if you need anything, please reach out. Fuckywix.com. All right, everybody, have a great night. Fuckywix.com. All right, Roll Call Room fans, we are back from break. I'm super excited. I've got a guest with me, Scott Medlin, right?
Yes.
That's it, right? Okay, because you have a last name like I have, like my last name. My last name that gets butchered, so I want to make sure I got it. So if you don't know Scott, I know Scott from LinkedIn, and I've been watching his stuff for a while. He's an author just like me, and his books fall right in line with the Roll Call Room mission and what we talk about. So Scott, tell everybody about yourself, specifically, where you came from, and your books.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on, Nick. And to all the listeners, I hope you're doing very well. I got into law enforcement in 2007 after graduating college, getting out of the Marines, where I did 2 tours in Iraq. And anyway, from 2007 to 2022, I was sworn. But 2020, January of 2020 is when a lot of things changed for me, in the sense that I was enraged, because that's when I learned, after being on the job for 12, 13 years, I can't do the quick math. Anyway, that's when I learned for the first time that more police officers were dying by their own hands than being killed by, say, a gunfire and all this stuff. That enraged me, because I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, why am I learning about this for the first time? You mean all these mental health struggles I went through, I wasn't abnormal. I was going through things other people were going through, and I had no idea. I felt isolated. I didn't know where there could be help. So that's when it was fuel for the fire for me to write my first book, Mental Health Fight of the Heroes in Blue. I said, I've just got to get something out there. Mm-hmm. And so I did that, and I started a YouTube channel. I've got a podcast. I've had the amazing blessing of literally speaking from coast to coast to police officers, just encouraging them, inspiring them, and saying, we have got to take our lives back.
Mhm.
And it's not some boring mental health checklist. It's not. It's just inspiring yourself and sticking with it through the hard times, which can actually make you stronger. And that's pretty much the journey in a nutshell as of right now.
Well, it's crazy because it's very similar to where I was. Like 2020 was for you, 2019 was for me. So it was a year prior. When you were going through all of that stuff, were there as many, how do I put this? Were there as many outlets for you to figure out that it wasn't just you going through that? Meaning, were there any really good books discussing it? Were there any podcast? And now there's a bazillion cop podcasts, bazillion of them.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Right.
But at the time in 2020, were there any books or any podcasts that were out that were kind of like, hey, listen, I'm going through it too, and had people on like you and I are discussing at that time?
Not media wise. Our chief bought, I forget his name. I know people are going to be like, how could you forget him? But the book Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement, the classic. Yeah. And so anyway, the chief at the department where I was working, he issued that to everybody. And when I read it, I was like, oh, shoot. Yeah. Wow. This is me.
Yeah.
And so that was it. That was that one book. And then the chaplain, he did, the chief at the time did, well, he's still there. He did restart the chaplain program. So I utilized the chaplain quite a bit. And I didn't care if anyone found out about it or I didn't care what others thought. I would rather be better mentally and physically and spiritually and socially and a lot happier than just dwelling in misery. So I utilized the chaplain as well. But that was it, just those two.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you're talking about. It's the red and white book.
Yes.
Dr. Gil Martin, I think it is.
That's his name. Sorry, Dr. Gil Martin, I forgot. No.
And listen, he is awesome. That book is awesome. It's kind of on the older side of things, but
yes.
Funny how even now that still relates. But what's even funnier about it is it's like a standard book that all chiefs of police, I think at the IACP must meet. And they say to all the chiefs, hey, buy this book and give it out to all of your folks, and they'll be just fine.
Right,
they'll
which
read
is a
this
total lie. Yeah.
It's like just read this one book. It's going to fix all of your problems, buddy. It's
right. Just like you can go to the gym once and be in the best shape of your life. Knowledge is only. I love the phrase "knowledge is only power" when it's applied. I mean, you have to apply what you learn, and you have to stick with it.
Yeah, and I want to say, I think in my old department, I think they had Dr. Gil Martin come and do a presentation at my department. I think I remember that.
Awesome.
But I wasn't struggling at that time, so my brain was like, oh, "Why are we doing this? Like, what is it about?"
Yeah.
I was one of those. Like, and so now the complete reverse is. Do you find folks that, like, with your books, are people reaching out to you, like, specifically after that first book, were they reaching out to you saying, man, I read your book, this related to me, this is poignant stuff? Were you getting all that when you first wrote the book?
Yeah, my first book, I was actually still active on the job, and I had officers who I worked with were saying, this is incredible. They were just like, you pointed out so many things, but also you didn't make it seem complicated at all so far as how to actively cope and build as a person. Because essentially when we stop growing as people, it's kind of like a plant. When it stops growing, it dies. So we as humans need to grow as well. And I pointed that out in the book, that we need to be aware of how we are and really be honest with ourselves. And yeah, I was getting great feedback and I was very honored. But yet at the same time, it was just, I was so shocked as to how many officers came up to me and I just realized I was not the only one. And that was huge.
Isn't that crazy? That's really crazy. The fact that you wrote that while you were still on is folks that are not in law enforcement have no idea how much of an anomaly that is.
Yeah.
It's like having a cop podcast and still being on, like still being a cop. Like you got to be really careful about what you say.
Oh yeah.
You got to just do fitness podcasts. Like,
Right.
you're not allowed to talk about like the job. It's like, hey, this is how you do these curls. This is how you do it. And I'll tell you, your book. The first thing is the cover of the book is really, really good. And
oh, thanks.
I have this obsession with book covers, man. I think when you do a book, the book cover really, I don't want to be cliche. You can't judge a book by its cover, but you truly can, because I'm going to send you a private message on LinkedIn of what my original book concept was for the first book.
Okay.
You saw this thing, you'd be like, good call, Nick. That you did not use this book, that you didn't use it. And like, I look at it now and I'm like, nobody would have read this book. But your book cover, it's spot on. I really like it. And I'm always encouraging people that write these type of books. I always encourage people to go read these books, like in any way that you can, get a hold of it, So you write the first one. How long after do you write the second one? So the second one's 101 health tips for police officers, right?
Yes, I wrote that, 5-6 months after the first one. I mean, I got after it because I in Mental Health Fight of the Heroes in Blue, I pretty much pointed out how our brains are innately wired, and at our brains at no point seek what we experience in law enforcement, whether it's the traumatic encounters, those critical incidents, those emergencies where you see the blood, you see the guts, you see the crime, whatever, or you're in a fight for your life. Like, your brain never craves that. And then I pointed out even the stress of negativity around you constantly, that can wear you down. Mm-hmm. But then I wrote about a few solutions that have been dynamic for my recovery out of PTSD and depression and how I manage the symptoms to this day. But I got to thinking, I was like, man, there's just so many ways that we can take care of ourselves. I need to dive more into that. So I started writing 101 health tips for police officers. And I mean, police officer or not, we're all human. So obviously these practical things can apply to anybody, whether they're in law enforcement or not. But it's just more geared towards the law enforcement. But it's just all solutions. Like, you don't have to feel powerless. You don't have to just reach for the alcohol to get away from, the thoughts or the upset feelings. You don't have to. There's plenty of ways out there, and they're not all that complicated, not all that daunting. And that's why I wrote the book.
And I'll tell and we're going to talk about the other books too, but you went through kind of the same pattern that I went through as well, which is the first one was the powerful, like, meaningful book. And then I had a subsequent amount of, like, I don't want to call them training books, but they almost are. They're like concept books of, like, how to get you through field training, how to prepare you for a promotional process, how to prepare you for a detective process. And you started going down that road, like Truth Behind the Police Academy, a field manual. Like you started to prepare people for that. And I'm not giving anything away. Then the other book, which this was on LinkedIn, this is where I got you. Like, this is where my attention was grabbed, which was the 101 useful tips for a rookie officer. Because I had done, I think, 2 roll call room episodes for rookies. Mm-hmm. And this book, like, I remember you promoting it on LinkedIn. I remember the cover again. And I was like, this guy's got it. This guy is going down the same rabbit hole. Like, he's doing the right thing, where he's preparing rookies to stay away from the pitfalls and the mistakes and stuff like that. Did you get a lot of feedback from the 101 useful tips for the rookie officers from rookie officers?
Oh yeah, there was a sergeant that I used to work with. He actually texted me, and he said he handed my 101 useful tips for rookie police officer, handed that book to one of his rookies. She was reading it in the break room at the PD. Another rookie comes in and tries to talk to her, and she said, "Shh, wait, I'm learning. Stop." And like told him to wait. She was so captured by the book. That was like the first great feedback I had heard about it. But I'm honored. A big department recently put in a bulk order for every single one of their rookies.
Yeah, doesn't that feel good?
Yes, it really does. It just because I miss being a training officer. I really do. I only got out of law enforcement for family reasons and to pursue this, opportunity to help officers across the country. But I miss being on patrol in the car with those rookies. So I thought I could write this book and it could be one more thing. Because what's scary to me is, at least the departments that I'm familiar with, you have.
I know where you're going.
You have 2 to 3 year, quote, veterans training new officers. That is scary. So there's just a mentality you have after 5 years. It's not bad. It's just you're more seasoned and you look at things differently. And I thought we've got a lot of new officers training newer officers. I don't like that, but I know manpower is very slim. So I was like, I got to get this book out there. At least I can put the perspective of 10 plus years in writing, and hopefully they'll read it and apply it.
And that's funny because that was the same thought process I had when I saw that book come out. I was like, this is ingenious because, and I talk about it a lot on this show, is that we have babies training babies.
Mm-hmm.
You have 2-year officers, and at 2 years, you don't know nothing. You don't know shit. And this is no dig on anybody that's a hard charger out there. And there are 2-year vets that are out there, 2-year officers that do have a lot of arrests and they've got a good prosecution rate and they're doing the thing that they should do. But in all honesty, your full value and potential, like you said, was right around the 5-6 year mark is when you start to really you start going, I think I got this.
Mm-hmm.
I know where the good bathrooms are. I know I've been roasted a couple of times by defense attorneys for DUIs and other criminal cases. And you've kind of had a couple of bruises that have healed where you're learning. At 2 years on, you're still feeling around in the dark. So that's what's that's what I really like about the style that you're going with this book and the one before this one was giving the outlet to officers that are brand spanking new. And I think because the millennial generation is coming into this profession, they go into field training and then they go, I still need more knowledge, or I need to verify what this field trainer is telling me that's outside of this department.
Right.
So they're actively seeking books and podcasts and Audible books and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this falls right into that, especially for the ones that listen to this show. You should be definitely be reading stuff like this, to avoid the pitfalls if you are a rookie. And I know there are, because we get a lot of emails from people that are like, can you guys do another episode on first year on, second year on?
Great.
And we forget, we've been on you and I pretty much have the similar amount of time on. When I came down to Virginia, it was 2005, 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And then before that I was in New York. But when I left, I had 15, 16 years on here in Virginia.
Right.
And you tend to forget what the first 4 years was like. And I wish I took notes too, because it's hard.
Oh, same here. Yeah.
As you get,
that's actually a tip that I put in 101 Useful Tips for Rookie Police. Document your journey. So, because I hate that I didn't take a lot of pictures of the people I worked with and some of the experiences I had, and take notes, write down these stories, the funny ones, the dangerous ones, so that you can apply it. You can teach other people about them, make people really understand what law enforcement goes through for people who aren't in it. Oh yeah. Document the heck out of it. That's one huge regret I have that I didn't do.
Do you find when you're doing your show, a memory will come back from something that you completely forgot you did on the job?
Well, what I find, I don't live in the state where I worked. And what I find now is when I do go back home to visit, I'll drive through where I used to patrol. And memory after memory comes up. I'm like, man, I totally forgot about that. But it's you look at a house and boom, you remember things or things that I swore I'd never forget. Yeah. I'm starting to forget them.
Well, some of it has to do with some age,
But you just go through so much that your brain can't keep up with all of it because the law enforcement's so involved and you have so many experiences. You're bound to forget some, even if you said you would remember them.
Yeah. So you're on the speaking circuit as well, right?
Yes, I've had a blast getting up on stage, and I freak out right before I get on stage. But hey, I'm only human. But because keynote speakers and speakers like that I watched growing up, they really made an impact on me, and I felt like if it's a way that I can just reach a few in the crowd, because some are going to tune you out no matter what you say.
Yeah.
But just if I can get to a few in the crowd, they can influence 3 or 4 more people who can influence that much more people. It keeps on getting passed down. So I've really enjoyed it. I've gone from literally coast to coast. And my recent big speaking was back in November. I got to speak. I was the closing keynote speaker for the National Concerns of Police Survivors event conference on trauma and wellness. And I mean, there were hundreds of people in the audience. And just to when I got done, I went out to the door so I could shake hands and say hello to everyone. I mean, people were coming up left and right with smiles saying, man, you really challenged us at the end there. I appreciate that kind of stuff. And heck, the next day I was leaving and I was at the airport and someone came up to me, Scott? And I was like, yes. And she said, oh, I was at the conference yesterday. You gave the closing keynote. You really hammered it home, and I appreciate that. And that makes it all worth it.
That makes you feel good. I've done a couple where there have been chiefs of police in the room, and then you go outside. Sometimes they let you set a table up for your books and stuff.
Right.
And I'm out there and I'm signing books, and this one guy comes up and he's like, hey, I'm a chief of police. I won't say where. And I was like, uh-huh. And he was like, you said a lot of stuff in there. And I was like, uh-huh. And he was like, we don't hear that a lot, like directed at chiefs. And I said, why do you think that is? I was like, do you think people are scared to say that to you? I said, I'll give you my opinion. I'm not in law enforcement anymore. So for me, I can say it. But if I was still trying to get in law enforcement or turn this into another law enforcement career, I'd be on my P's and Q's. And I'm not, because I think the overall mission of what you and I are trying to do is greater than trying to get back into law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And you keyed into it, like where today, the 17th of March, there's 19 suicides this year and only 18 line of duty deaths. So one more suicide than line of duty. And it's just a perpetual every year. Like, one is too many. And it's refreshing to see somebody like yourself, like in that boat with us. Like we're all kind of, there's a select few of us that are out there doing that kind of stuff, like you and Travis Yates, and there's Andy Harvey, and then there's Under the Shield podcast. There's so many other ones, and I'm leaving some out. It's not because I forget about you, like Spinning Our Gears podcast. All these guys and gals are talking about this stuff, but I don't know what direction we're going in with law enforcement lately, but we'll see. And I think what you're doing is really good. Really.
Well, I appreciate that. I just want everyone on the job to be just as vigilant with internal risks and threats that happen within our minds and bodies as you're trained to be aware to external threats. I mean, when you walk up to a car on a traffic stop and you see people moving around, digging in the floorboard area, you instinctively pick up on that. It doesn't mean something is absolutely bad going to happen, but you're aware of it.
Yeah.
But yet, are you aware of how your consistent negative thought patterns are bringing you down every day, and you're turning to bad habits to get away from it, and even though they don't have good long-term consequences. I just want people to raise their awareness and raise your standards too. Like, you don't have to survive in life. You don't have to survive on the job. You can thrive. Yeah. I know there's a lot of noise right now. There's a lot of negative media attention. It's not going anywhere. Realize who you are. Raise your standards. Don't settle for. You don't have to settle for that stuff. Keep doing what you can do and control. Take action for what you can control, And it's not going to be easy, but it's worth it. Every single bit of it.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I got a tough one that I'm going to ask you. Don't worry, it's not like a sabotage question, but I'm a 10 to 15 year officer right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I get asked this a lot. So now I'm just going to pawn it off on you.
No problem. Let's do it.
10 or 15 year officer. And I want to get out. Like, I'm thinking about getting out, but I'm pretty sure I want to get out.
Mm-hmm.
My spouse is like, hey, listen, get out. You're in the same boat as me. I'm not in it anymore. You're not in it. You made a go at something outside of law enforcement, and you did good at that go. What's your advice to that officer saying, hey, I don't know if I could leave the security of law enforcement, the guarantee of overtime, the security, the quote unquote benefits of law enforcement. What would you say to that 10 to 15 year veteran?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is I have to quote Zig Ziglar, and he might have gotten it from someone else. He's a famous, legendary motivational speaker, passed away several years ago. Anyway, but he said fear stands for false evidence appearing real. So that's the first thing. A lot of what is going to hold you back is fear of the unknown, fear and fear of letting go of that secure paycheck. But I would say make sure you're pursuing another opportunity rather than running away from a negative emotion. Just make sure you're pursuing an opportunity that will work out for you. And trust me when I say this, you have no idea how many skills you learned in law enforcement along the way that can help you that much better in whatever you decide to do after the job. And when people say, but you'll lose your retirement package, yada, yada. Look, there are so many people that don't work in law enforcement who retire just fine. You can plan your own retirement. Do not let the pension hold you hostage, because I know Nick, I know you know people that do this as well. I don't believe in it. I mean, there's officers literally killing themselves to get to retirement, or they're just like dying slowly along the way, and then they get to retirement, and if they don't keel over from health issues after it, then they're miserable after the new feeling of retirement wears off because they don't know who they are and they don't have a purpose or a passion. So anyway, I would definitely say fear will hold you back. You have to push through the fear and then pursue another opportunity rather than running away from a negative emotion. Because if you're running away from a negative emotion, once that emotion settles down, you're going to be like, oh, shoot, what do I do?
Yeah, that's really good advice. That's pretty much the same advice that I give, which is also, know your finances at the beginning of your career and
Mm-hmm.
every increment of the way, because I spoke to somebody fairly recently that was getting ready to retire, and they went to a financial advisor, and the financial advisor was like, you were putting this much into your pension for the last 20 years. And he was like, if you had given me this much for 20 years, I'd be handing you a check for $1 million by now.
Oh, wow.
And it was so poorly mismanaged, the pension,
Mm-hmm.
or the amount that you're putting in. And I think what folks look at is they go, well, I only work for 20 years and then I get a pension for the rest of my life. But if you're smart and you can do that outside of law enforcement, and you have a good financial advisor, or you're smart enough to do it yourself,
yeah,
man, you can make money last a long time if you're careful with your money and you're not careless, so that's super, super good advice. And I'm going to switch gears because it's very rare that I have somebody on that's outside of law enforcement now. When you left law enforcement, were you experiencing residual effects when you left? Stuff that was suppressed when you were on the job that now you're off the job, nightmares, eating habits changing, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, nightmares still, they happen. The other day I had a dream, or the other night I had a dream of a guy it was a traffic stop. He slams his hands on the car voluntarily to be patted down. I said, well, hang on, sir, we're not there yet. And all of a sudden he turns around, puts his hands in his pockets because he's reaching for a gun. And I wake up like, God, what? And I'm like, man, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's amazing to me that that's still happening. But the hypervigilance has settled down a little bit. The other day, I had to go into the grocery store and get something, but I didn't have my gun. I said, okay, let's go in there anyway. And I'm alive to tell you about it. I have noticed something has relaxed. I'm not talking about complacency, but
right.
Physically, I don't feel as apprehensive and mentally the same way. But at the same time, I do miss the camaraderie. I do miss the unpredictability of the day, just because who knows what happens on shift. And that's one thing I loved about the job was just, there's so many different experiences. And obviously now that those experiences aren't there, but that's something I noticed. And another thing, which is very important for those currently on the job to know, is your department will go on without you. You're not going to hear from all these brothers and sisters, family, and all that. No, you're going to probably have, most 5 people that you stay in touch with. I think I'm being generous with that number. Yeah. I think I'm being generous with that number. Really, seriously. Yeah. But I know that they preach like we're family here. Well, okay. I can tell you right now, I can go back to the department where I worked and they would not let me in. Unless I was escorted by somebody or just, had checked in with the front desk to be allowed to go in. I just wouldn't be allowed back in. I worked there for so many years and it's just, no, they cut my access off to the building. So I'm just saying, that's one thing I realized when I left, that all these people that I worked with for several years, man, life goes on, people go on, and crime continues. I know you did a lot and you probably made a difference, but crime will continue. That's why I like to tell rookies, you're no big deal. I know that comes to a blow to your ego, but you're no big deal. Do what you can and do the best you can at it. But when you leave, things will keep on going.
Well, and it's reassuring too, because I'm kind of tainted. I know I'm not allowed back at my old department. I know I can't even get a visitor's pass at my old department. I'm sure that you remember back in the day, you'd go into Target or wherever in the loss prevention office and they'd have pictures up of shoplifters.
Yes.
I am almost 100% sure that my picture is behind the security desk. And it's if this guy comes in, dial extension 4792 or some shit like that. I know.
Yeah. I'm allowed back in because I've been to some retirement parties since I left. But yeah, the fact that when I turned in my stuff, they said, all right, give me your city ID. And now you can't get back into the building unless someone lets you in. It's just wow.
My invitations to the retirement parties must be lost in the mail or something. I know my department still listens to this. I have moved since leaving the department, but I did quote my email, my mail. But I tell folks I'm in the business space now, and I get a lot of folks that were not in law enforcement. And they're like, hey, you miss it? That you were in law enforcement for over 20 years. Do you miss it? I'm like, man, I don't miss the circus. I miss the clowns. That's just, I don't miss the 3-ring circus. When I left headquarters, it was the greatest job in the world. But within the 4 walls of the castle, man, all the stuff that happens in there is where all those mental health issues, or the majority of them, happen, is the bad decisions that are made inside of those walls. And
that's why I encourage officers, one, get away from all the negative talk, because it actually led me to quitting after my first year and going to another department. I was convinced that the department I was with was on a sinking ship. And when I went, fortunately, 8 months later, they took me back. Yeah. And I never looked at it the same again. I really overall enjoyed it. However, when you see some of these decisions being passed down, it's just one thing after the next. You start to lose. You feel this. You feel like you're not supported, and that's why I tell officers, man, you can't rely on external factors to bring you happiness. You just can't. You have to know who you are, what you're doing, and work on you each and every day, even though you won't want to at times. Because the more you know you and the more you work on you, the less the external noise can have that much of a damaging effect on you.
100%. Scott, you and I have so much in common. So much. Like, just talking to you for this short period of time, man. Like, you left your department, I left my department and went back. Like, man, we have to close this out, but I'm going to tell you this. There's going to be a part 2 in the very near future. You and I are going to get on a call to do another one of these, but a full hour of you and I
Sounds
really
good.
deep diving, because man, there's so many similarities, and we have the same kind of like way of thinking about things. So maybe not the same. I don't want to get you in trouble or anything, but but where can folks find you if they need to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. thescottmedlin.com is my website. But when it comes to the new police officers or those interested in getting in the job, go to rookietips.com. And if you go to rookietips.com, you can get one of my free mental survival guides, but also you'll get 101 useful tips for rookie police officers at a discounted price. So go there, rookietips.com. But I also have a podcast and a YouTube channel called the 10 Code Mindset. It's amazing to see some of the hateful comments I get on YouTube. I'm like, wow, you don't. It's just how naive some people are. I'm like, you didn't even watch the video.
I love comments, man.
Yes.
They fuel my fire, man.
Oh, I know. The more these people comment just hateful things, the more people tell me, yeah, that means you're doing the right thing.
Well, but I'll say this, and then I'm going to wrap it up. The newest thing now is on Facebook. People taking or putting in a complaint to get me suspended from Facebook, saying that I'm not using original content, which is hilarious because I've had 4 videos removed of my books and I wrote them.
You wrote them?
Yeah. So
unbelievable.
And it's anti-police activists saying that it's their content. Right. And I'm like, I wrote the freaking book, and Facebook sides with them. So I'm like, whatever, man.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
The world we're living in, man. The world we're living in. But Scott, I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Nick.
Definitely going to do it again. Folks, there's going to be a link for all of Scott's things that he talked about, including his books, where to get his books. It's going to be in the description for this podcast. And then when I put it out on Instagram, Facebook, and all the other, social media things, I'll tag you in those too, Scott. So really appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Oh, it's been an honor. I appreciate it.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Take it easy.